The Australian Defence Forces Centre of Excellence. The analysis determined that a very stable, distinct, and clear signal was detected distinct at 33.331 kilohertz, at 33, and that it consistently kilohertz at a 1.106 at second 1.106 second. They therefore assess that the transmission was not of natural origin, and was likely sourced of natural origin from specific and was likely equipment. From specific, they believe the signals to be consistent with the specification. They believe the signals to be consistent with the specification data recorder and description of a flight data recorder. Up to 11 military aircraft, 4 civil aircraft, up to 11 military aircraft, and up to 14 ships, 4 civil aircraft will assist in today's search. Up to 14 ships will assist in today's search. RAAF, AP3C, will coordinate with Ocean Shield, will conducting a sonar voice search in the same vicinity. A sonar voice search. Today, a weak front is moving in from the southeast. Today, a weak front is moving in from the southeast, and is expected to bring scattered showers. The planned search area is about 75,000 square kilometres. The size of the search area, you may have noticed the size of the search area over the last couple of days, significantly reduced over the last couple of days. Based on Ocean Shield's detections, we are now searching a much more concentrated area. We are now searching a much more concentrated area possible based on the drift by Ocean Shield's detections. By the smaller area has also allowed us to plan. The smaller area much tighter search also allowed us to plan based entirely on visual search principles. Based entirely on visual search, we have intensified. In other words, we have intensified in the visual search area. In the visual search area. Just a bit of housekeeping. At my last press conference, I said I would come back to you with the precise timing of when the signals were detected by the Ocean Shield. Of when the signals were detected by the Ocean Shield. The first detection took place on Saturday, the 5th of April. The first detection took place on Saturday, the 5th of April, Perth time. At 4:45 p.m. The second detection took place on Saturday, the 5th of April. The second detection took place on Saturday, the 5th of April, at 9:27 p.m. The third detection took place on Tuesday, the 8th of April, took place on Tuesday, the 8th of April, at 4:27 p.m. The fourth detection took place on Tuesday, 8th of April, took place on Tuesday, 8th of April, at 10:17 p.m. I'm now happy to take your questions, but before I do that, I would refer you to the diagram there, which shows you where all the detections were made, where all the detections were made to you, and I would also satellite highlight to you calculation, the satellite handshake. That was calculation. The handshake number 7. Was a partial that was the handshake, which was a partial ping in Kuala Lumpur, where the expert that the aircraft might have flown, his engines might have flamed out, and it's probably significant in terms of the end of power significant in terms of the end of power flight.
To give you any indication how far what does your data show to give you an indication how far the survey may have traveled from?
We have no idea of debris. We have no idea of we're continuing the visual search, very intense visual search. We're continuing the visual search in the hope very intense visual search in the hope of consistent with the amount of oceanic drift, consistent with the amount of oceanic drift during the period that has been so that's the first at play during the second point is so that's the only thing we've got at the moment in terms of this location we've got at the moment in terms of this location detection of the transmission is we have no idea of the transmissions. We have no idea at this stage, and of course, as soon as we finish the and of course, as soon as we finish hopefully we'll get some more transmissions to better refine. Hopefully we'll get some more transmissions to better refine on the ocean floor where the transmissions are emanating on the ocean floor. Once we've got transmissions are emanating from, there's probably no more hope of picking up any more transmissions. There's probably no more hope. We will put the autonomous underwater vehicle. We will put the autonomous to have a look underwater vehicle. Now hopefully. To have a look. Lots of transmissions. Now, hopefully, with tight, small areas, we'll have, and hopefully, in a matter of days, we will be able to, hopefully, in a matter of days, on the bottom, we will be able to find something on the bottom. This is the last resting place. Might confirm that this is the last resting place. I can't stress enough. The families have to be considered when you report all of this. Have to be considered because when you report all of this, certainty. Because we don't get certainty. They want a bit of certainty. We don't get certainty sighting until we have a visual probably sighting with the work of the autonomous vehicle. And that will probably come. The other thing about the bottom there, I'm informed. The other thing about the bottom there, I'm informed. There's a lot of silt down there by experts. That could complicate. There's a lot of silt down there because the silt on the bottom of the ocean can be because the silt on the bottom of the ocean can disappear into it, and it makes a visual search disappear into underwater, and it makes a visual search underwater very difficult.
On Monday, it was possibly two devices or one device?
Well, we've got the evidence. The assessment was made. Well, we've got the evidence. The assessment was made that this has not been confirmed in the further this has not been confirmed in the further now, whether that's detections we picked up. One pinger has run out of battery life, and there's one running. Run out of battery life close to it, one running. I don't know. Or we just haven't got close to it. We haven't had any further. But the fact of the matter is, we haven't had any further in the same area at the same time. In the same area at the same time.
Isn't it curious that 2.3 on frequency was correct?
Well, I won't get into that because basically I won't get into the analysis on that. I don't the analysis has revealed anything. I don't think unusual. Has revealed anything unusual. I might ask Commodore Levy if he has anything.
Moving more pinger locators into that area to cover more territory? Moving more pinger locators into that area to cover more territory?
Because, as I've said previously, one of the important things, as I've said previously, one of the important things is the need about complete search is the need completely noiseless environment. Completely noiseless is minimising all. Ocean Shield is minimising all. Else is turned off, so that we have the best search environment possible. So that if you had the best search environment possible, you'd end up with a very noisy environment, and you'd end up with a very noisy environment. The sort of search that we've got at the moment. I mean, this is we are looking at this stage at the moment. I mean, this is we are looking transmissions that are probably weaker than they would have been early on. Probably weaker. Than they would have been early on, both because devices are past their use-by date of both, and they will very shortly fail. So I think we're very fortunate, in fact, to get some transmissions on day 33. Just one.
Is it possible that you could release a section of that audio recording so we could hear it?
We'll take a look at that. I don't see why not.
Technically, how many detections do you think the Ocean Shield needs to refine the location eventually? Because now you already have 4 detections, and you say you still need more detections to refine the location. And second, do you have more information regarding the detection received by the Chinese ship? And do you still think it's a reliable one?
Well, in terms of Ocean Shield, the more detections we get, the better. And the other thing that comes into it is the quality of the transmission and the detection. What we're after is the best return that we can get from the deep, and by triangulating all of this positional data, we will be able to come up with a much more sharply defined search area, a much smaller search area underwater.
If you don't have more data, you won't have any choice than using your submarines tools. If you don't find anything more, are you going to use your submarines?
Well, you know, submarines have their limitations too, particularly in terms of they have a limitation in how deep they can dive, and of course that's a very classified area. All nations they don't declare how deep their submarines can go. The environment down here is around, we've said previously, 4,500 metres. So what we're talking about are specialist underwater autonomous vehicles and specialist other vehicles that could be used for recovery. So this is the domain in which you use those sorts of vehicles. So from here, we will be looking further downstream for other vehicles that might be able to operate in the environment if we find obviously the aircraft.
Mr. Houston,
what is your best guess?
Just one at a time. You first and then you.
Thanks, everyone. The distance between the points here on this map is about, let's say, 25 metres maximum. In the past, we were told that the detector could only really pick up sounds about, a mile away from the black box locator beacon. Are you reassessing the black box locator beacon? Are you reassessing the physics of how, these sounds travel underwater at this point, because you're detecting things which are much further apart than
No, well, again, you heard the Commodore say the bottom is a silt bottom that absorbs sound, and funny things happen depending on temperature layers and so on and so forth. So the characteristics of the water, the characteristics of the ocean floor all come into play here. Now the other thing is that in terms of this area, the Ocean Shield went there on the 5th of April. It deployed the towed pinger locator, and it has been pulling that towed pinger locator since then. So that's 4 or 5 days. And it has searched that area continuously through that period of time. This is what we've picked up at the moment, and you'll note that the most recent detections are all down in the southern part of the area.
What was the depth of the TPL on Tuesday when those two signals were fired?
Okay, away you go.
It was around 1,000 metres above the seabed, so around 3,500, fully deployed.
Hey, Chief Marshal, Mr. Houston, given that does look about 30 kilometres apart, is that, do the experts say that's consistent with what could happen from a plane's impact and the distances between the locations? And furthermore, I wanted Commodore to comment on whether there's a strong drift at the bottom of the ocean which could disperse things.
I think you'll handle all of that. You're the naval officer.
It's quite possible that there is currents down there which could have disturbed the debris, and also as it was falling from the surface, it would have dispersed over a fairly large area as well. It has been said we know more about the surface of the moon than our own seabed, of our ocean floor. I think that's probably right. So we don't have accurate sampling of the currents in that particular area. The indication we have that silt is on the seabed is taken from some core samples that were taken some years ago and 130 miles away from our current position by an oceanographic ship that are in a database that we can access. But that gives an indication of how little understanding we have of the detailed topography of the seabed. But the concept of having water movements and flows down there is certainly one that we need to take into account.
Up at the back, sorry, I'll
No problem. I'm sure the families must take some encouragement from what you've announced today, but as you say, that confirmation must be visual from the autonomous sub. What is your best understanding of when that sub could go down? Do you have a time frame in mind, 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 days? So when you make...
You mean the autonomous underwater vehicle?
Yeah.
We will send it down when we've exhausted the possibilities in terms of the surface search. This is a personal opinion. I don't think that time is very far away at all, because I think the last signal we got was a very weak signal. If we continue to get signals, though, we will continue to search for the very simple reason that the underwater vehicle, it operates at walking pace. Okay, it has a relatively narrow swathe, and it takes days and days and days to cover even an area like this. In fact, this area you see here would take it. We'd be talking in terms of weeks, not just days. So the more time we spend getting the locational data, the better off we're going to be when we come to the underwater search. And remember that what I said in my brief. Essentially, it takes 6 times longer to cover the same area with the underwater submersible as it does with the towed pinger on the surface.
If I could ask maybe another way, how long will you wait from the last ping you receive or the last signal you receive, which, as you said, was last night? If you hear nothing more, how many hours or days will you wait before deploying the autonomous vehicle?
Well, I think those judgments have yet to be made. This is a very dynamic process, and judgments are made on the basis of a lot of factors, and clearly we're not at that point yet. So I can't give you any information at this time. I would imagine, though, it's not far away before we deploy something to go down and have a look.
Today?
Yesterday there were some reports that debris was found and which was sent for investigation. Is there any update on that?
None of the debris we found thus far has had a connection to MH370. But we're now in a search area, and we're working very intensely, and we're hopeful that we might find something that has a connection to the aircraft. So we'll just have to wait and see how that goes, and if we find anything of significance, we'll obviously let the media know.
This more intense search area, have you already been over that before in a broader pattern?
I think we've probably been over on a broader pattern, but we haven't done it the way we're doing it now. You might remember over the last week we've been covering areas of 220,000 kilometres, areas the size of Ireland or one of the largest provinces in China. We're now sending the same number of aircraft out to a search area which is much smaller. Consequently, we can do a much more intense, a much more thorough search, visual search. Before we were doing, if you like, an all-sensor type search using radar and eyes, but what we're focused on right now is a visual search, because we're visual range. I think the track spacing is usually about 2 miles, 2 miles each side, and that's I think that's visual search 101.
How big is the new search area exactly?
Sorry.
How big is it exactly right now, the new one?
We are searching 75,000 square kilometres. We keep going from nautical miles to kilometres. Yeah.
Given the debris that was spotted previously had nothing to do, you believe, with MH370, is there any chance that the frequencies actually have nothing to do with the transmission devices that you're looking for? You've said they match up the frequencies do, and you don't believe them to be anything natural, but are there any other possibilities being spoken about that they could be something unrelated?
Well, we think, we've had the analysis done. It's nothing natural. It comes from a man-made device, and it's consistent with the locator on a black box. So that's why we are more confident than we were before, but we've got to lay eyes on it. Okay?
Roughly 90%.
One more question, and then.
Are you considering how to arrange the family members if they come to Perth? As we know, there's not enough accommodation for so many people come here at one time.
We are working. That's one of my roles, to coordinate that. This week is very busy in Perth because there's a big conference. That is true right now, but we have thousands of people here at the moment, thousands of visitors. From the end of this week, we will have adequate accommodation to cater for the families, and we will be keeping a very close eye on that. We are working very closely with the Chinese ambassador and his staff, the Malaysian High Commissioner and his staff, Malaysian Airlines and the West Australian Government, the City of Perth and the City of Fremantle, to ensure that we can do everything possible to ensure that the families are looked after and taken care of when they come to Australia. We want them to, we know it's a very sad time for them, but when they come, they will be looked after. And we are very focused on that. And I must say the West Australian Government, the federal government are both see this as a very, very high priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.